Welcome back to NRM 638, Python Scripting for ArcGIS Applications, Spring Semester 2015. This is an e-learning class at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In this session, we're going to work on creating Polygon feature classes. So what you need to do is go to the Blackboard website and download week 4 polygons.txt. And then we'll copy and paste from this text file to the Python window in ArcMap. So the first thing I'll do is I will set my out workspace variable to my geodatabase, and then I'll double check to make sure that that is set to my geodatabase. It is set to my geodatabase. And then what we'll do is we'll create a Polygon feature class. So it's going to be very similar to creating a polyline feature class. The only difference is the keyword polygon. And then we will add some fields. So we'll add a field poly ID, and that will be a short integer field. And then we'll add a field name, and that will be up to 16 characters. It'll be a text field. So maximum is 16 characters. And then we'll start editing it using the data access insert cursor, and we'll allow access to the shape, the polygon ID, and the name. And we could double check what fields do we have access to that we could insert. So edit polys is our cursor object, dot fields. So these are the fields we can insert values for. So we'll make a very simple polygon that's going to be a square, and here are the coordinates for our square. And we need to make an array container that will ultimately contain the vertices of our polygon. Okay, so we could loop through and see what our coordinates are. So we're going to go from 0, 0 over 5, 0, and then up to 5, 5. Back to the left to x of 0, y of 5, and then always close our polygon. So the beginning vertex and the ending vertex will be the same. So we're going to create a point object, and the point object will be put into our array. So how many points are in our array? So array dot count. So there's 5 points in this Arcpy array. And then we'll create a polygon object from our array. And then we'll see what is the area of that polygon object that's a square. So the area is 25, which makes sense because the sides are 5 by 5. And then we'll make a new row from our poly object, a value of 1, and then a text string square polygon. And then we'll save that to our cursor. So edit polys dot insert row, and then we'll insert our row. Okay, so I made a mistake. The object is new row, not row. So we'll just change this to new row. And then we're done. So we'll delete our cursor to unlock the table. And then we'll add that Polygon feature class to our data frame in ArcMap. So we indeed have a polygon. It has a field value of 1 for our poly ID, and it has a string square polygon for the name field. This is the polygon, and if we look at our table of contents of our table, we've got other fields that are automatically created by ArcGIS because we output it to a geodatabase. So the shape area is a property that's output to the geodatabase, and the shape length are the perimeter. So these two are special fields that we won't be able to delete because basically they are created by ArcGIS. So we can't delete those fields, just like we can't delete the shape field or we cannot delete the object ID field. Okay, we can create multi-part polygons in a similar manner, analogous to how we created multi-part lines. So the first thing we'll do is make a new polygon feature class, and then we'll work with that shape field. So we'll create a insert cursor. And then we'll make a Arcpy array for our first part of our polygon. And then we'll make another Arcpy array for the second part of our polygon. And then we'll initialize a point object. So the point object will have an x and y value of 0 to start. Okay, so we'll have a list that will contain the xy coordinates for our first part of our polygon, and then a second list to control the xy coordinates of our second part of our polygon. So then we'll make a array containing points for our first part. So that array contains points that have an x of 0, a y of 0 for our first point, all the way down to our last point has an x of 0, y of 0. So if we say part1 array dot count, that will tell us how many points are in that array. So there's 5 points in that array. So those are the points in the array. So they have x coordinates, y coordinates, no z coordinates, and no measures. Okay, so we'll do the same thing for the second part. Loop through and create an array containing points for our second polygon part. So these points are actually vertices for the polygons. And then let's see what's inside this array. So once again, it's an array of points. The first point has an x of 10, a y of 10. The last point has an x of 10, a y of 10. So then we'll make a big array that is composed of our two part arrays. So this big array is composed of the part 1 array and the part 2 array. And then we'll make a polygon object from our big array, and that polygon object will be a multi-part polygon object. So if we say, well, let's take this polygon object and dot, is it a multi-part? Yes, it is a multi-part. Okay, so then we'll insert that into our polygon attribute table using our cursor insert rows. And then we'll delete our cursor object so we can unlock the table so we have access to that polygon attribute table. And then we'll add it to our data frame in ArcMap. So test polys 2 and zoom to layer. Okay, so test polys 2 is a two-part polygon. This would be the first part and this would be the second part. And if you look at the attribute table, there's one polygon. So basically it's a two-part polygon, and the shape perimeter would be the perimeter of this part and the perimeter of this part. And then the shape area would be the area of this part and add the area of this part. So that's how you can create a multi-part polygon. Okay, the last type of polygon we're going to create is a polygon that has holes. So we'll use the create feature class to create a test3 polygon feature class. And then we'll use the insert cursor for the data access insert cursor, and we'll just work with the shape property. And then we'll create an array, and the array will contain the vertices for the exterior ring of the polygon. The outer ring of the polygon will be defined by the points inside this array. And then any part following our first part will be inner rings that are basically going to be holes in our polygon. So we'll have one inner ring that will be points or vertices in this array, and the second inner ring will have points or vertices in this array object. And then we'll initialize our point object. So we'll have XY coordinates defining our outer ring in this Python list. And then we'll have XY coordinates defining the inner ring in Python lists. And then we'll use these lists of XY coordinates to create an Arcpy array containing point objects defined using these coordinates. The first Arcpy array will represent our outer ring, and we call that the outer array object. And then the next Arcpy array will be our inner ring number 1. And then the last inner ring is going to be our inner array number 2. Okay, so what's in this inner array number 2? It's an Arcpy array object. Get rid of that indentation. And it has points that define ultimately our inner ring, which will be a donut hole in our polygon. So then what we'll do is make our multipart big array. So it's going to have the points defining the outer ring and the points defining the first inner ring and the second inner ring. And then we'll create a polygon object from our big array. And then we'll insert that polygon object in the polygon attribute table. And then we'll delete our cursor, which will unlock our polygon attribute table so we can add it in ArcMap. So then in ArcMap, we'll add that to our data frame. So add test poly 3 and then zoom to layer. So here is the outer ring, and then this was the first inner ring, which became a hole, and this was the second inner ring, which became a hole. So that's how you can create polygons that have holes in them. Okay, so that was our last video session. So now you're ready to do the scripting assignment on creating points, lines, and polygon feature classes. So if you go to the Blackboard website, I've got this week's scripting assignment ready for you to accomplish.